This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech.
So many headlines of late have been written about the abuses suffered by North America's Indigenous peoples.
From the indignities and harm of residential schools to the loss of purpose, and perhaps most importantly, identity.
Today's guest has survived and works, as she says, to turn her pain into purpose. Cher Obediah, welcome to Believe in People.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're thrilled that you're here. Cher, you've made it your mission to turn your pain into purpose. And I'm sure that wasn't an easy transformation for you. Can you share your journey that led you to this empowered purpose?
Yes. I was in an abusive relationship and it just sucked the life out of me, sucked the creativity out of me. I mean, I was very driven in the beginning. I mean, I had a good job. I was in theater when I was younger. I got into television and then I was starting my own production company. But by the end of this, I had no job, no money, no career, self-loathing, and I was unaware that this could even happen to people. So it definitely became my mission to get myself out of it, figure out what went wrong. I did not want to be at risk of it happening again. So I really needed to figure out how I went down that rabbit hole in the first place. And I think almost I've been being steeped for this because I was in theater, because I got into television, and because I'm okay with cameras and all of those types of things, that it really is a gift now to be able to get out and speak about it.
Well, are you in some way, I mean, we all know, many of us who are aware of theater, for example, are aware of Thompson Highway and his struggles in the theater in Canada in terms of trying to tell his Indigenous story. Is that kind of similar for you? Is that the kind of upbringing that you had? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I had a very good upbringing, although culturally disconnected. So I did not get reconnected until I was in high school, because on Six Nations, it only went up to grade 8 at the time. So the Native kids got bused into the city. So I met them in grade 9. So at a time when things are supposed to be very awkward, I was finding a belonging at that point. So that's when I started to go to powwows and get reconnected again. I joined the Native Club right away, but that was not the experience of my partner. He was the son of parents who were residential school survivors. So very tumultuous upbringing. But because of all the reconnection that I did, I was hyper aware of residential schools and of the history. And so when I met him, I was forgiving to a fault, is what I like to say. I would always say, I get it. I fully get it. I understand. So we would talk it through and cry it out and hug it out. But yeah, very, very tumultuous upbringing. We were raised in opposite ways.
So this is sort of two things. You're trying to understand your identity, and so you're learning about that aspect and the belonging of that, and then you're in a relationship that you're just trying to figure out, because it's insulated, isn't it? Like, I mean, you don't know. That must have been really tough to wrap your head around. How do I get out of this? Or is this, how do I know this is wrong?
Well, Amy, I didn't want out, and that is unfortunately the situation for so many people. I wanted to make it work. How can I alter myself to reduce these triggers? How can I get my environment to be more peaceful? How can I help us to get along? How can I understand him better? So ultimately, when I did go to counseling, that was how I entered in. I just need to be more trauma informed. I just need to understand what I can do differently. How can I help us? That's how it ultimately started. But it ended with me getting connected to self, and that took a long time.
Well, it took a long time. Why did you find that to be so difficult?
Oh gosh, personal work is that's the challenge of being here on earth, is personal growth and, oh gosh, trying to unwire all the wiring, shedding your socialized skin. What is mine? What is my mother's? You know, do I own this? I'm a human habit. How do I become the watcher of oneself? It's so challenging. It's just easier to blame other people. It's them, it's not me. It's when you hold up a mirror to yourself is where the transformation begins. And that's tough.
So was that, Cher? So was that part of the journey or part of your therapy when you wrote, or take us back to when did you write your book Shame to Shine? Was that part of your therapy?
It absolutely was, unknowingly. But I was not able to express my emotions at that time to my partner, because when you're dealing with people who are deeply wounded, they will take it as criticism and you are left invalidated. So that's what happened. And I just by nature started to walk out on the nature trail, and I started to write on my phone just to get it out. And I've discovered in these healing circles that a lot of people do that, just start writing poetry. So I was just doing the right thing, getting it out so that I didn't have stuck energy. I just wanted to release it. And nature's very restorative. And so by the time I got to the end of the trail, I would have like a little poem written. I used to jog all the time there, but most of the time I wasn't even jogging anymore. Now I'm just like trying to get myself reset for the day. So I was often compromising my exercise time because now I have to rewire or fix what just happened at home. So I wrote poetry and emailed it to myself and never really looked at it again. And after we did separate, I noticed that my writing shifted from how can I help us? How can I help him? To how did this happen? How did I go down this rabbit hole? I need to figure this out. So my writing shifted to what I call healing and transformation. And then I was setting goals for myself and I was hitting them. So then it shifted again to empowerment. And again, I was just emailing them to myself. I just had a file folder called writing. And one day I sat down and I scrolled through them. And I'm telling you, by the end of that, I was in tears because it felt like I witnessed my own becoming. And I have these loudmouth inner guides that said, Cher, you should share that. And it's ultimately my most personal stuff that I didn't even tell my family. So I was just like, calm down. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that. But it just kept coming. And sometimes things continue to commune with you and want to be made through you. And so those are the things I pay attention to today. And I'd never written a book before. So this is why I call myself an accidental author. Nobody sets out to become a statistic or share their deepest, darkest secrets. This is my diary in poetry. That's what this is. So I took 20 hurt poems and called it, the chapter is called In the Cycle of Domestic Violence. I took 20 of the healing and transformation poems, and that is in a chapter called Healing and Transformation. And I took 20 of the empowered poems and called it Empowerment and Enlightenment. And I also did all my own illustrations as well. So I'm very proud of it.
Good for you.
Do you think, you said your upbringing on Six Nations Reserve was a good one, but you also mentioned that, you know, you attended powwow and things like that, which obviously those sorts of things take place on Six Nations. Were you able, or have you, your upbringing, has it helped you reconnect in the way when you're talking about empowerment and things like that? Has your First Nations, Six Nation Reserve upbringing been of assistance to you spiritually?
I actually was raised in Brantford and grew up playing hockey, because what else do you do in Wayne Gretzky's hometown?
Well, you are a member of Six Nations.
Kevin's
Yes.
ears just perked, Cher. You said hockey.
Yes, I grew up playing hockey. Left wing, that was me. Started out as defense, but yeah, absolutely. One of the best times is being on a team and playing hockey. But culturally, yes, absolutely, 100%. My culture has been very helpful in restoration. I do smudging, and I do like a meditation smudge together. I learned to be a powwow dancer at a very awkward adult age. So these kinds, it's such a beautiful, beautiful, full, very full, nothing is forgotten or left out. The language is poetic. So it boggles my mind that anyone would ever want to squash that, because the more I get connected, the more it just makes me want to cry. It's so beautiful. Yeah, it's been helpful.
What is smudging? Tell us, those who don't know.
Sage, so negative energy. So sage is used to release sort of negative energy. And then I'll use the eagle feather and then just send prayers up. The eagle is the highest, the one that can fly the highest, closest to the creator. So if you're sending up your prayers and your good thoughts, then you're using your eagle feather. So yeah, I'm smudging and I'm also just thanking all my past lessons. So it's like taking the sage behind, thanking my past lessons, taking it upwards and thanking my spirit guides, and then also towards me, thanking the body that I have, that I see the good in others, that I speak well, and that my ears remain open to hearing what others have to say. It's a beautiful way to start the day. And if you repeat that enough, it comes into your mind throughout the day. If someone is like talking and you're like, oh yes, I need to remain open. So it's been great that way as well.
And Cher, what would you share with others? I mean, you've been through this experience of domestic violence and it's been a long journey for you, and you said you wanted to stay. I mean, that was the one thing that kept you, there was something that kept you there. You wanted to improve the circumstances. So for our listeners and viewers, what can they do when they're in this situation? And maybe perhaps they just don't even know that they have options.
Yeah, the main thing is I always say that you remain connected to yourself. And I love that this is a theme on believe in people, that people are constantly coming back to self or that wisdom within. I like to say that intuition is my religion. So being guided by intuition, you know, and you can tell and you can feel when something is off, and that when you're making fear-based decisions, but you have to be conscious enough to be able to catch that so that you're not making those fear-based decisions. But ultimately, getting out of it is tough. Because they introduce so beautifully, and because the cycle is a circle, so there's obviously those ups, like really high highs, and then there's those low lows. When it's bad, it's bad. When it's good, it's amazing. So I really fought for that beginning part that I knew that I could get back to, but you never get back there. It only ever gets worse. So how do people get out of it? You got to have your own awakening and ultimately regain your independence. That's huge. That's a big one. It's really hard to go anywhere if you don't have the means or the funds. And so working on yourself, your negative self-talk, those kinds of things, because it can all get rewired. I started out here and ended up down here rewiring. So I had to rewire myself back. So it's a lot of personal work.
What would your advice be? Because there is also in an abusive domestic relationship, obviously there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of loneliness. What would your advice be to any listener that might be in a relationship like that?
I think it's different for everyone what fills you up, because you have to sort of keep finding that thing that brings you back. Otherwise, you'll keep going the other way. So what is it for you that you enjoy, that you love? Do you love to paint? Do you love to draw? Do you love to ride your bike? Do you love to rollerblade? Please don't let go of those things. What makes you alive? And so for me, I loved walking in nature, and I made sure that I did that. And yeah, you can get very, very lost. There's nothing more painful than the loss of self. And so doing the things that speak to your spirit, I would say, is really, really important.
And Cher, this might be a really naive question, but you promote Indigenous culture, healing and transformation, domestic violence, youth-driven initiatives and content. You do a lot of work for the sole purpose to inspire people to recognize their worth. Why do you think it comes down to that? Like, why do they find it so difficult to live gracefully with others?
Because of our negativity bias, I think. We're just hardwired for negativity, and that ultimately is a survival mechanism, but it can work against us if we're not aware of it. So, and then we have this desire to fit in and this need, and it's difficult for youth because that's where you really want to fit in. But I think that when we understand that we have this negativity bias and that we can work towards, sometimes if people cut us off, we get like really angry in traffic. So it takes a lot of work to say, oh my goodness, I hope everyone's okay. So we immediately are gravitating towards the negative. And so I really try hard at keeping positive vibes, staying around positive people, keeping my own vibration up. And then for everybody else, that's up to them. I now self-govern in a really great way, and I'm proud of that.
What sort of experience have indigenous peoples across North America had to endure when you're talking about negativity. You know, the conquest, or whatever you want to refer to it as. I recently read a book entitled 1491, North America, or the Americas before Columbus, and it described all of these societies and farming and tools and quite quite an organized sort of way of life prior to Columbus arriving. How difficult, in your view, has it been for First Nations people to overcome this sort of thing? And is it an ongoing challenge?
Well, hey, look, it's no accident that the numbers in jails for Indigenous people are really high. And it is a result of that. That's the ripple effect. I'm sitting right here as a ripple effect. I'm a product of enfranchisement. So my grandparents signed away his rights, but ultimately their backs were against the wall. So you sign away your rights, you're going to get land, you're going to get money, but you're now expected to no longer practice your culture. You no longer practice your language. So, you know, my mother was raised without any of that. She didn't have anything to give. And so we were just raised in the city. Nobody really thought anything. I thought back about my childhood and I'm like, geez, like I remember this native head bust in the living room, but that was about it. So getting that back is absolutely, it's a challenge. And you're also dealing with people who weren't able to say anything back or fight back because you're just pushed and bullied and lied to and trampled on. So what do? You start arguing amongst each other. So now we have an environment of lateral violence. So now we're arguing with each other, and that has just been ongoing. This is going to take generations and generations to unravel. We've come a long way, and I will say that, and I'm proud of that. That in my lifetime I have seen positive change, and that's beautiful. But we still have a long way to go. And it's things like this that really help get the word out, create positive change. What are we doing with our energy, with our short time here on our Earth walk to create that difference? That's a ownership. That's what we can do for ourselves and for each other and for the future faces.
So Cher, you're a creative. You're a filmmaker. You're a writer, a speaker, an author, an artist. What I think connects all of these is a way to express your voice. So I want to ask you, how hard was it to find your voice?
I just like everyone else became a cog in the wheel. So that's hard. I mean, that's how we're raised. It's hard to be a creative in this world and survive that way. Today, I honor that. If I'm not waking up inspired and motivated and joyful and grateful, then I know I need to make a shift. But when I was younger, I definitely started to, you know, take those jobs, get stuck in survival. And so being a creative is super, super difficult. But today I honor that, like, society's not set up that way. It's not set up for creatives. But if I had a 9 to 5 today, I would be emotionally starved. That would starve my spirit and I would not be happy. And so I don't want to be emotionally bankrupt. I just don't. I don't care if I go bankrupt, but I don't want to be emotionally bankrupt. And that's the truth. And that's one of the beautiful things. I call this my beautiful disaster. And that is one of the gifts that this has given me, is how lightly I walk on earth today and how I honor being a creative. I actually just finished a 12 art canvas installation. It's a domestic violence art installation on 12 canvases. It's called The Art of Healing. So writing and painting and creating film and shooting and editing, like all of the things that make my spirit smile.
It sounds to be, you mentioned the phrase earth walk earlier, which is the first time I've heard that. And it's I find it really interesting. And you also seem to be very aware of your own responsibility towards the earth. And here we are this summer, sitting in a pile of smoke that's coming down from the north. I'm speaking to you from Chicago at the moment, where we're under a blanket of smoke. And basically all we hear down here is smoke from Canada is coming down. What about all of our Earth walk? How important is it to you that perhaps all of us start to pay a little bit more attention to Mother Earth?
I know this is a problem of being socialized And so this is what I mean when I say shedding your socialized skin, because you are the environment. It is you. You are it. I can look at a bird. It needs everything that I need to survive, and air and water. We're just not paying attention because everything is being monetized, that we're putting the economy over the ecology. And that's just not sustainable. And it's obvious in what's happening. And so for Indigenous culture, everyone is a relative. So a tree is a relative, a bird is we're all brothers and sisters and related. And that's just the truth of it. I mean, the world doesn't speak English, it speaks energy. And so when we understand that and we understand our connection, that we're not just here to monetize this, that, and the other, we're here to enjoy the journey. We're here to expand and grow. We're here to allow our spirit to shine bright. And however we do that is an individual journey that should be honored. And this is the thing about trying to change other people too, that drives me crazy. Allow people to be who they are. What is their spirit seeking to fulfill? We don't know. Just allow people to be who they are. We might all get along a little bit better.
It's so true. And Cher, I've heard you talk before and at different talks, and you've said that hurt people, which is really profound. So how do you turn that around? How can hurt people believe in people?
I think it really starts with believing in them, because they're so used to their own negative self-talk and so damaged themselves. And I know that people always want karma or retribution, and it's just, that's not how we all gain. We don't gain from that. You would never take a rescue dog and punish it into fear-based submission. You wouldn't do that. But yet that's exactly what we do with our human population. So we lock them away and we fear them into submission rather than positive reinforcement, which is what you would do with a rescue animal. It's positive reinforcement. You bring them back. You believe in them. And so I have a lot of love for my ex, even though all of the chaos, I'll send him love. Ultimately, the more that we do that, we're able to lift ourselves up, lift each other up. That really makes the difference.
That means you have to learn how to forgive, doesn't it?
That is a doozy, my friend. Yes, especially self. For forgiving myself, it was the big thing, because I felt like, man, what an idiot. Well, why did I stay? And I think a lot of people start there. But ultimately, we're not born with all the answers, and that we need to be more forgiving of ourselves while we're still here learning on our earth walk. we're here to learn, and that we don't have all of the answers. And as we're learning, we can't get angry at ourselves for that which we do not yet know. So yeah, forgiveness is a really, really big one. And I also like to say that people are at different levels of forgiveness, that we're not at the same level. And when I talk about forgiveness, wherever you are with it is perfect. So just move your way towards it because it's beneficial for you. But I know that there are parents out there who have had their children killed, and they will go up and hug that person on the stand. And we're talking level 4 forgiveness, and we're not all there. It's beneficial for the person that did that. But wherever you are is perfect, because some people say that things are just unforgivable. I'm not at that place. I don't believe that, because of the grace and the joy and the light that it's given me. I just said, ever hear Dr. Wayne Dyer? He talks about squeezing the orange. Whatever is inside is what comes out. And so if you're releasing all of that bitterness and that anger and those resentments, orange juice will always come out of an orange. And if you squeeze a person and pressure a person, if anger and bitterness and jealousy and resentment are all the things that are in there, that is the behavior that's going to come out. But if you release all of that and you can find forgiveness and you walk with light and love and compassion and empathy, then that is what is coming out. And it is really a superpower, because people can't get at me today. You can't offend me today. I mean, it's almost impossible to offend me. Whatever comes from you is of you. And I understand that today. So again, just a beautiful disaster brought me back to self.
Kevin, I think Cher is saying she believes in people. Are you saying that, Cher?
100%. I do believe in people. Absolutely. I think that we create our own worldview as well. And if I'm out here thinking the world is bad and people are bad, then I have just created a negative container for myself. And I do not want to do that. And the other thing is, if we're believing in people, then that negative ripple effect that comes from not believing in them is affecting us all. So if we're believing in people and we're lifting them up and we're bringing them back, again, referring to the rescue dog scenario, that let's believe in each other, because when people are rooted in who they are and they're connected to their values, they are not going to act outside themselves. So let's believe in them and bring them back. We didn't have jails in Indigenous communities. We had healing circles. We brought people back to self. And I would love to see that come back again. Our society is so backwards. It drives me crazy. I don't feel like I fit in anymore.
Cher Obediah, thank you so much for sharing a half hour of a healing circle for us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed my time with you all. Thank you again for having me, and thank you for doing what you do.
Thanks, Cher. Really appreciate it. Kevin, I really liked Cher's thinking around healing circles and creating a healing community rather than sort of throw everyone in jail. Not that we're doing that, but I mean, the thinking is different, and I like that. And so I'm encouraged by her saying that, and I hope that we here at Believe in People are kind of creating that healing circle or healing community of sorts. I'm inspired.
Well, and considering that she herself has come out of an abusive relationship and has taught herself to forgive and keep looking forward and to learn. And the fact that she's sharing all this with us is a great privilege for us. And if you've enjoyed this and you've learned something from it, we hope you'll join us next week or subscribe to Believe in People. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, everyone.